Okay, and we're live already. So hello, everybody. Welcome to, this was supposed to be a Facebook Live, but welcome to Spiritual Cafe Live. We had some trouble getting onto Facebook in a live stream tonight, so we're recording this and uploading it. So you've probably seen this a little bit later on Friday evening. So welcome everybody to Spiritual Cafe Live. And my guest tonight, I'm so excited, is Shawn Leonard, the Aboriginal medium from Canada. And I'm so excited to, if you haven't met Shawn or heard about Shawn, just wait, because you're going to be hearing more about him, I promise you, in the States. He's an Aboriginal medium from Canada. He has a TV show that's called Spirit Talker. Which station is it on in Canada?
In Canada, it's on APTN.
Okay. So if anybody's in Canada, make sure, if you haven't seen it already, check it out. And he's also the author of the book, The Language of Spirit. And Shawn, I have to tell you, you made quite an impression on a mutual friend of ours, John Holland, when he was up working with you a few years ago. He said you're probably one of the most clairaudient mediums he's ever seen.
Yeah, I'm pretty clear on it, I think. Which is, I mean, it's, you know, I think, I mean, we all have strengths, I guess, when you're working as a spirit talker or as a psychic medium. And I feel like one of the strengths that I'm grateful for with spirit is I'm able to hear very well.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I know we're not seeing Spirit Talker in the States yet, and hopefully very soon, knock on wood, that's coming soon. But the bits that I've seen, the names and the information that's coming through is just like awe-inspiring. Do you ever have moments where you think, wow, where did that come from? Do you ever have moments like that? You must.
I do. Yeah. I mean, I'm always surprised with what comes from spirit because you just don't know what's going to happen, but you have to trust.
Yes.
So when you're working with what's coming through, I'm just spouting stuff out, and then somebody stands up and says, "Oh, that's my mom or my dad or my brother," and you know, and then what happens? What I feel like what happens with spirit is they give you just a bit of information, so enough to make a connection to a person, and then once they've given you that bit of information, then they continue to give you the little breadcrumbs, I guess, and you just follow that little journey, which takes you down a path that leads you to the greater picture of the message that they have. And I think it's awesome, the whole experience every time. I mean, you have to learn how to work with spirit, I guess, and knowing when things are literal or when they're figurative, and trying to understand what they mean sometimes. And I mean, sometimes I don't know, but you just have to trust. And it makes sense to the person you're speaking to. And I think that's really what's important, is not always that we understand, but whoever's receiving the message understands. And then just to continue that until you feel like that they've gotten the message across, or the healing that is needed to take place because of that message. You really, and that's what this work is really truly about. And that's what the spirit's intention is with this work, is helping people heal. I mean, because nobody in the spirit world is looking down at any person going, "Oh my God, I'm so grateful they're struggling through this grief." No spirit is doing that. They look at us and go, "Oh my God," they feel empathy for us, and they can see that we're struggling. They want to help us, and they will try to do things in different ways to get our attention through, that language. And it could be a sign or a little message or just something that reminds you of them, to trying to say that, "Hey, I'm here, I'm with you. I'm not really gone. I've never really left you. I'm still around you. I still spend time with you." And so often when those things come through, whatever they may be, as odd as they are, they're so profound to the person that they're being given to. And I just feel very blessed to be part of that process. And I think the real gift in doing this work is not being psychic. The real gift in this work is being part of the process of that love, feeling that connection from spirit and feeling that love for that person, for those people you're speaking to. That's the gift, is being part of that love. I think it's a great honor. And I feel very blessed to be part of that process.
Yeah, you're the messenger for spirit, the postman per se. A lot of people say it's just delivering the mail.
The funny thing is I used to deliver the mail.
Get out, really?
I used to be a mail carrier back in the day,
right.
and I used to work in the evenings as a spirit talker, as a psychic medium, and I'd always joke that I delivered paper messages by day and spirit messages by night.
Oh,
there you go. Alter ego, I guess. It's like
we're always drawn to the work we're actually meant to do, even if it's not exactly the.
exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love the job, but you know, and you know, one of the things that I even stayed with the job as long as I did was out of fear, because you know, everybody has a sense of like security in life.
Yeah,
And you know, and I think most people would probably kind of relate to this right now, especially with
yeah,
what's going on. And this is really a big shakeup time with COVID-19 and everything that's going on in the world, because how we identify ourselves typically is being challenged, is being tested. I mean, it could be a job that people would associate their life with so much, so strongly, and thinking that this is their experience right in life. But there's so much greater things to us. And even back in the day, because I had a job that had a pension and benefits, and you know, I was scared to leave a job like that to move into this work fully. And that's where I feel maybe, hopefully, a lot of people out in the world are going to get from doing this, is like, you know, how, you know, where could you be in service in some way to help other people? It may be being a spirit talker, maybe being a healer, and maybe doing something else in some way that you've not had time for or really to work at.
right.
For me, back in the day, unfortunately, I blew up my knee twice and herniated a disc, and then I couldn't do the job anymore. So it's like spirit saying, "Hey, buddy, if you don't leave, we're going to make you leave."
Exactly. It's like a wake up call, right? So, hello, get
Right.
going, get you
So
got marching
hopefully it
orders.
doesn't take that for all of us, right? Then hopefully that somehow we can find our calling, our path, our
Yeah.
purpose in life in some
Mhm.
sense, without having something tragic happen or something horrible maybe happen to us. And I
Right.
think this is where hope, you know, through this whole process of, like, again, COVID-19, that I'm hoping this helps everybody think of just a little bit bigger about their life, about who they are and how they fit into it, and maybe where they go from here. How do they approach life from this point on? And
Exactly.
maybe they got to think about, okay, maybe I need to approach the world differently than the way I have been.
Hmm. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people going to be doing that now, now and into the coming months as things unfold. So
Yeah, it is for sure.
yeah. So I know that it's just to kind of narrow it down a bit, because I know what you're saying with, us stepping up to what we're meant to be doing. And maybe this is a catalyst right now for us to really look at that. Like, what are we giving back to the world? What are we meant to be doing? But what about the mediums out, like specifically mediums, student mediums, who are saying, should I step out there and do this work? Obviously, you had a little push out there to do that, right?
Yeah.
When you physically you couldn't do the other job anymore. But what about the ones who really, really, really want to get out there, like right now? Um, what should they be looking for? Because I know some people, they quit their job, their day job, before they're ready really to step into that work. I mean, what kind of advice do you have for them?
Well, my advice would be to, I mean, if you feel like your spirit is guiding you in a way to be of service by connecting the spirit and receiving messages for other people, I would say you should follow that path. And I'm not saying step out of your comfort zone, but you do need to a little tiny bit. You know, you just need to get out there and trust. And, you know, if you show up, spirit will show up. And if you're available, I mean, sometimes you have to be vulnerable when it comes to spirit. You have to trust that they're going to show up and give you the information that is needed to help another person. But it's your intention. It's the intention of the person who's receiving the messages, and the real reason as to why you would do this work in the first place.
Yeah.
And it's really about serving others and helping other people heal.
Mhm.
And, you know, again, being part of that process, I mean, I can't think of anything greater to do personally, other than doing energy healing work myself, like
Right.
hands-on energy work, because I feel a passion for that as well. But you know, spirit, this being a spirit talker is such a huge part of my life. It really doesn't allow for a lot of other room for other things. I do my best,
Yeah.
but I feel like other mediums should get out there, other spirit talkers, people who are thinking about doing this, or just dabbling in it. You know, now is a perfect time to really step into this a little bit more.
Mhm.
And there's going to be a calling for people to be in service. You know, through on the other side of COVID-19, and people with all, you know, lots of loss,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
people struggling with their job or the work, they're looking for some type of direction or guidance, and that could come from spirit. And if you are willing, I know spirit will show up for you to help other people and serve other people. And I think this is a really big time for people who are healers, and
Yeah.
whatever format of the world that they're reaching out to help people help move us into a space and place that is going to help heal us all. I mean, spirit is obviously a part of that, and there's going to be many people that lose people due to this, which is unfortunate.
Right.
But there's a calling for people to help people heal through all different circumstances, and just this is just one of those ways.
Right. And you're not saying, go take a weekend class and then hang a shingle up and start working as a medium. You're not saying
No,
that,
not at all.
right? Yeah, I
Uh,
knew you didn't. Yeah.
no, doing this work is a lifetime thing. It's a
Right.
lifetime commitment. It's something that you continually have to work at. And you know, it's good to take a class to get you started, to just dip your toe in the water. And
Right.
then, then eventually maybe after some practice and work, maybe after a few years, then you could go up to your knees, who knows? But, my whole life, again, like I've been doing this work for over 20 some years. And, the connections were really profound right from the go. And that's what gave me the confidence to continue, is because I then knew that this was a real thing happening. It wasn't just a figment of my imagination. This is real. Spirit's really communicating. And I was doubtful. I had fear. I had anxiety. I didn't want to be wrong. I didn't understand certain things. And,
Right.
and I guess when you practice and practice and practice, you start to let go of some of those fears, and you start to understand what they meant, and you develop a vocabulary. And when you have a vocabulary to draw from, and from understandings of like, oh, I know what this means, or, I remember this story in my life, which means something to that person, you learn to have a larger repertoire of information that you can draw from for your vocabulary to actually help other people greater. And it takes
Right.
time to grow that vocabulary.
It does.
It
Yeah.
does. It takes a long time. And again, what I was telling you before about being a mail carrier, I love that work. I would get out to walk every day. I'm a people person, and I got to connect to people and get exercise. But Spirit obviously had a different plan for me, and I was resistant to leaving my job of years of doing this work as a spirit talker. And when time is right, I mean, that's when I guess you're meant that you'll know. There won't be any like
Yeah.
confusion, or there won't be any fear. You're like, this is the right time and space for me right now. I know
Exactly.
this is the direction I'm meant to go in at this time.
Hmm.
And then you just go there, and then do the best you can. And it should continue to unfold and reveal itself. And when you're on your right path in life, whatever that is,
Hmm.
the universe is going to support that.
Exactly.
The creator will support that. Your angels, your guides, everybody in the spirit world is supporting you on that journey.
Hmm.
And they know that you need the training, or you need the understanding, the knowledge, the wisdom to serve people best, because they're not going to throw you into a situation where you're not prepared for. So they're going to prepare you through life lessons, through experiences that you go through. And unfortunately, with people who are in healing work, we go through some tough things.
Yeah.
And experiences and losses, and all kinds of things, relationship breakdowns, and because we're gaining wisdom to be able to help other people greater. Hopefully at some point that all smooths out, so you have enough wisdom to draw from.
Right.
I think my life's there now, thank God.
You're starting to feel like you got that wisdom now to just kind of move
Yeah,
forward.
I've got enough. I don't need any. I'm good, doing good right now.
I know wisdom meaning like, yeah, we don't need any more wake up calls.
Yeah,
That's what we
exactly. I don't
mean.
need to learn from anything more difficult stuff.
Right.
This is all good. I'm good now.
Exactly. It's like, yeah.
But I mean, when you do step into a work, it's not unnormal to have hardships or struggles, or,
Right.
just because you're a psychic or medium or a spirit talker or a healer doesn't mean that you get a free pass in life.
Exactly.
I actually feel it's the opposite. I feel it might be that you actually have more heartache, more trouble, more struggle, because in order to have a repertoire of knowledge to draw from, you have to have experience.
I agree.
If you
That's
don't
why.
have experience, you're not going to be able to serve other people as good as you possibly can.
Absolutely. I mean, how many people that you know of who, obviously, because you teach you have many students, how many have come to the work because of loss or some kind of hardship, or something that they really had to struggle through in their dark nights of the soul, how many times did that happen? Have you seen that quite a bit?
Yeah, I mean, almost probably
Yeah.
every one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, even me, back in the day, I mean, the first experience I've had many experiences through my lifetime, and most people probably have, is I have a book out called The Language of Spirit. But, it started young. I saw my great grandparents visiting me, and I was scared. I mean, being like 4 and 5 years old, I mean, I would have never thought that, I was a medium or a spirit talker. I was just a kid who was connected to the great grandparents who were visiting him.
Right.
And then after my dad passed at 15 years old of a massive heart attack, and, unfortunately I tried to revive him, and, even knew that he was there with me, and cursing at his body and telling him to get back in there. It wasn't meant to be. And some things are just meant to happen in life. We all have a time to be here and a time to go. And, so it's been kind of revealing itself. And then a year after my dad passed, I had a visitation. And it was the most incredible, great visitation I've had in all my life. Like, if all the spirits I connected to, what better person to connect to than my father that's passed away? And I had the experience where I saw him in light. And he walked out of the light, and for whatever reason, he was wearing a long white robe, which I thought was ridiculous, because it wasn't what I would have expected my dad to be wearing. My dad was a hunter. He was in the Navy. I mean, he had like 5 guns. My dad wouldn't be wearing a white robe. And and the thing he told me, he says, Shawn, he says, well, he knew I was angry with him because I tried to save his life, and I wasn't able to. But he said, everything happens for a reason, and you need to calm down. He says, you need to tell your mom I'm okay. You need to tell your brother I'm okay. And I'm like, I will. And then I became so fixated on the light that that was surrounding him. And all I could think about when I saw this space and this place was that was home.
Yeah.
And then I realized that the world that we live in, even though it's as great as it is in so many great ways, that we were all going to go to the space and place in the spirit world. And I felt like home. And all I could think about was going there. And my dad said, he says, you can't come here. He says, if you're going to come here, you're not going to want to come back. I'm like, no, I'll come back. But I knew I was lying. Literally, my arse there was no way you're getting me back. And then he showed me a few things. He showed me, what it would look like for my mom if I had left. And I very quickly, in my mind, I saw all the experiences, and I felt what my mom went through. And it was horrid. It was horrible. After losing my father and then losing her oldest son to, a very early death at only 16 years old. I mean, she would struggle so hard through her grief. She would struggle for another 7 years, and I got to see and feel that. And then he showed me what it looked like for my brother. And my brother was only 12. He'd get over me in a year. But I mean, he's my brother, and I tortured the bejeebus out of him, I think, when we were young. So I'm sure
any proper brother should.
But, I still would have left, even though I saw that. I said, because I saw that my mom would eventually, even if she struggled for 7 years, that I saw that she would eventually get through this. She would carry it all of her life. But I knew that one day she would come home and we'd be together anyway. Mm-hmm. And I still would have left. And my dad says, no, you're not coming. He says, I need to tell you a few things. And he says, the fact that I died at this point in your life is intentional. It's on purpose. We had this plan long before you or I were born. I said, why would we make such a stupid, silly plan? Why would we plan this? He says, because I'm meant to show you the light. He says, one day you're going to help people. You're going to help people to understand this light, where we go and where we come from. I said, how the heck am I supposed to do this? And he said, well, I can't really tell you, but it's going to happen to you. And I said, okay, whatever. It sounds like I'm talking to Yoda from Star Wars. So I just let it go. And I thought, this is crazy. My dad is speaking gibberish, right? Mm-hmm. And he says, but the greatest gift of love I could ever give you, Shawn, was to leave this world so I could show you the light where we all come from.
Wow.
And my soul understood that. I didn't logically, but my spirit did.
Yeah.
And that was it. He touched me on my forehead, and I woke up on the couch, and I was looking around, my mom's living room, in the rec room, looking for where my dad was, and he wasn't there. But I knew that was a real connection. And that was the best way for me to describe it was more real than real.
Right.
That was reality, and somehow we're in the Matrix. I mean, the movie wasn't out then, but when it came out, that's what I felt like. We're in the Matrix. There's something weird going on here, but this isn't reality. That is.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
And then, I went about my married life. Did I think of what my dad said, that I would be a medium or that I'd be helping people? No. All I could think about that point in my life at 16 was girls, guitar, and maybe getting a job. And that was my priorities, first finishing school. Mm-hmm. And then I moved out to Calgary, Alberta, Canada, because I live in Nova Scotia, Canada right now. And I got a job. I got a girl, had a couple kids, and a couple girls who I love very, very, very much. And then, things started to happen. I wasn't looking for, to develop. I started to walk a spiritual path. That's what I started to do. I was raised Catholic, and that religion wasn't speaking to me anymore. And I didn't want to go to church, and it just wasn't resonating with my spirit. So I started just to pray. And I didn't really know how to pray other than saying Our Father, but I started just to have conversations. And I would speak to people in spirit. I'd speak to the Creator. I'd just say, I don't know if you can really hear me, but, I need you to hear me. I need some help with this, or I need some help with that, or, Dad, I need to know that you're around me. I would just have these conversations, and I started to meditate, and then things started to happen. It was kind of a little weird because it was all these little synchronicities. It was just like not an accident.
Yeah.
And I remember one day, and at first when these things all started to happen, I thought it was crazy. I mean, who wouldn't think you're crazy? I mean, because I wasn't sure really what was happening, and I wasn't like trying to develop in any way. I just being walking a more spiritual path in life.
Yeah.
I think that's key. I actually feel it's a huge key to becoming a spirit talker medium is walking a spiritual path. Because to be connected to spirit, you have to be in communication with spirit. And it starts with your words and the conversations you have, and then learning about your energy, your aura, and your body, and your chakras, and just learning about how you fit into all this energetic thing that's around us.
Right.
And then when you start to become spiritual, you then become connected. And you start to connect in a way to not just to spirit, like in general, but you get to connect and you get to feel things from people in a way. If you're very sensitive or empathetic, it could be hard.
Yeah.
But the price of sensitivity is sensitivity, but it's also a gift. It depends on how you look at it. Because why are you that sensitive in receiving this information? Is it meant to overwhelm you? It can be if you don't know how to ground yourself out properly, you don't know how to center yourself properly. Or when you're around a person who is struggling heavily, you might be overwhelmed by that. But why are you feeling that from that person? Why are you feeling this energy from that person? Maybe you have something you can offer that person that will guide them, help them, or guide them in life in some way. And I remember one day going to work. I was like working out then. I had like all these muscles, and not just a big belly. But I was going to work, and I remember praying to work on my way to work, and I just said, Creator, I mean, if there's anyone that I can help or be in service for, I'm available. I want you to know that I'm available. That's all I said. And this is where it gets weird, because I just finished saying that, and somebody jumps out of a ditch, and I'm on a back road driving to work in Calgary, and unfortunately, this girl was not fully clothed, and she looked like she'd been through some trouble. And I jammed on my brakes because he ran out the road, and she's waving me down and she's asking me to help her. And then I roll my window down this far. I'm like, are you okay? I mean, what happened? I'm thinking this is some type of weird setup. Somebody's going to jump out and get me. I mean, and then I heard a voice in my head say, didn't you just ask to help someone? And I'm like, I did. And I'm like, I rolled it down a little bit further. I said, are you okay? And she was putting her shirt on and stuff, and she had some drug paraphernalia, unfortunately. And I said, get in. I said, I think I have to take you to the police station. And she got in, and she's been through a lot in her life. You could tell.
Right.
And I said, I don't know. I said, I have a question for you. And I started to drive towards the police station, and I said, you have to make a report of what has happened to you. And she wouldn't go into great detail, although you could tell that she'd been through something. And on the way to the police station, I said, did you pray for help? Did you ask for help? Did you ask for something? And she wouldn't really answer me. And I said, well, you know what? I said, I don't normally go the back road, but today I did. And there's no lights. I mean, it's like a country road to my workplace. And I actually just prayed that if there was somebody that I could help, that I would be in service, and you jumped out of the ditch. I said, you think that's odd? Is that it? I mean, I didn't make what happened to you happen, but the fact that I took this different road and you were there and I was praying to be in service to help someone, and you jumped out and you needed help. I don't think it's an accident. And I said, you know, maybe you need to think about your spirit, because, you know, I feel like that spirit people listen to me, but they don't just listen to me. They listen to you too. And I don't know what line of work you do. I could only make assumptions, but I said, hopefully this shifts your life in a way that you choose a different path. And then I was almost to the police station, and she didn't want to go there. She asked me to drop her off at a train. It was a train station. She said she's been to the police many times. And I said, and I argued with her a bit, but I wasn't going to win that argument. So I said, fine, I'll drop you off, but you should really think about reporting what happened to you. And she said she would. And I said, just, you know, you'll be in my prayers. Like I will send good intentions, good thoughts to you. And, you know, I'm glad that you're well, even though you've been through something. But I hope that this will help you think differently. Because if you've actually asked for help and I showed up, and I was asking to help someone and you showed up, those aren't accidents.
Right.
And she says, I believe you. And then as she got out, she said, I did ask for help. And then she left.
Wow.
And it was very, very moving moment. Like, it was like one of those synchronicities you just don't expect to happen. And I realized the power in the words that I would speak, because I would only speak from my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't speak with fear. I would speak with, you know, certainty that spirit was hearing me. And then I said, that kind of encouraged me to talk more. I said, well, is there any other way that I could be in service? Is there something else that you have for me that maybe I could become aware of, that I could help other people? And then at my work, things started to happen. I started to have feelings about people, like weird ones, like almost like, and I mean, I don't want to hog the whole show on you here.
No, this is great. Keep going.
I love talking and telling stories. Just so
I love to hear them. So keep going.
It's how I teach people. I think it's important to teach this way.
Yes.
And it's an indigenous way of teaching. It's an indigenous way of teaching people. It's through stories and
yes.
such. And these are true stories. And there was one guy, his name was Shawn. He worked with me at work. And he walked by me at work, and he was a pretty big guy, muscular guy, worked out. He just transferred to my department, because at this time I was making office furniture. I was making wood office furniture in a company, and I was actually doing bills of material in AutoCAD. And he just transferred to my department. Mm-hmm. And he walks by me, and my only thought as he walks by me is, all I can think about is buying a pony. I said, this is ridiculous. Why would this be coming into my head?
Why am I thinking this? Is what my students say. Why am I thinking this?
Why is this in my head?
You're receiving it. You're not thinking it.
Right.
Right.
And I had to ask him, right? I'm like, please don't beat me up, Shawn. But, you know, I got a really weird question for you, buddy. But, you know, would be some reason you've been thinking about buying a pony? Because how the hell do you know that? I'm like, I don't really know it. But when you walk by, that's what came into my mind. And he says, well, me and my wife had talked about it. We have a 4-year-old girl, and he said her name. And he said, actually, we would like to, but we have an acreage in Calgary, Alberta, which is a very farm-orientated community. Like it's a lot like Texas in some ways, the Canadian Texas. And a little bit colder, mind you. But he said, we want to get her a horse, but we think she's too small and too young for a horse yet. So we just were talking about last night about getting her pony. And he says, were you looking in my computer? I'm like, no. I said, why? I said, why would I need to spy on your computer? Because I was just looking up a buy and seller like Kijiji. I don't know if you have that down in the States. But it's a buy and sell site. It's called Kijiji. And he goes, I was just looking up there for buying a pony. And I said, no. He says, what else do you know? And then he sat down and wanted to know more. I'm like, I don't know. But it was things like that started to kind of happen. It was just like, it just started to happen to me. Mm-hmm. And then I started to, like, you know, wonder what else would come. And it was like little drips. It wasn't like, and I think that's what happens to a lot of people when you're starting out as a spirit talker or medium. It's just a little drip here and there. You get a little piece of this, a little piece of that. Yeah. And then as you practice and as you learn more about your abilities and how they come to you, And then they start to reveal themselves a little bit more, and they turn into quicker little drips, or they leave you more than one breadcrumb, and then you follow that path, and then eventually somebody's turning the tap on, and then they're just like, it's just flowing. And then when you get in that zone, it's just coming through, and you're in flow. You're inspired. You're in spirit with that flow of information that's coming through, and it's an incredible process. And when you get there, it takes time.
It does take time. Yeah.
But it's so worth the effort. It's so worth trusting the little drip, and then another little drip, and then it eventually just flows. And
well, let me ask you this, because I mean, all the mediums I know, including myself, that there's always moments, and sometimes we have days, and sometimes we just have moments where we say, why am I doing this work? Is it worth it anymore to keep doing this work, to stay on the path of, and should I be doing something else? Should I quit? But there's always one reading, or even a couple of readings, or a particular connection that we've had in the past that we go, you know what? I remember what that was like, and that's kind of like the touchstone reading, the thing that you go back to. You say, that was so real to me. That was so life-changing for somebody. I can't not do this work anymore. So do you have a connection like that, or a reading that you did for somebody?
I do. Like I've quit doing readings 3 times in my life.
Yeah.
3 times. And unfortunately, I've been divorced twice. And one of the reasons why I had quit initially was that when I got married, I wasn't this person that I am. And it kind of happened, and I changed, and I became this other person. And it became such a big part of my life. And, trying to balance out a day job, looking after children, and then doing work on nights and weekends, it wasn't working. And it eventually led to the downfall of my relationship. So I actually stepped back trying to make that relationship work a few times. But there was this voice that kept coming back in my head that you need to keep doing this. You need to, the right person at the right time, or the circumstances where I could help somebody. And I felt that, like, that moment, I was like, oh my God, this feels so good to help a person.
Right.
It feels so good to be able to see that healing take place in another person. And then, even though I stopped, Spirit would find a way to send me somebody to remind me that this is part of who I am, and it's meant to be part of who I am. And then eventually I would start doing readings again. And then again, I stopped again, and then went back again. And then I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to, and then I eventually became a mailman. I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to be a mailman. This is it.
Delivering the mail.
Right. I mean, that's enough work as it is. I mean, walking all day, and then, carrying like 30, 40 pounds of mail. And, but then again, my body wore out, and then I couldn't do that job anymore. So I had the option to either work like midnights and like literally like moving envelopes at midnights, or to move more fully into this work. And I said, I'm going to take the leap. And my mom was going, oh my God, Shawn, you can't do that. You gotta, you gotta have a good job. You gotta have an income. So there's this fear that was also in me too, that I was hearing from other sources, like family who care about me. But my mom didn't really understand, how much that I felt inside me that I needed to do this. And I feel like Spirit kind of made me.
You don't have much of a choice sometimes, do you? Yeah. So you mentioned earlier about, needing to be spiritual to walk the path of a medium. So in your mind, what does it mean to be spiritual? Is it being, I mean, for some people, I think what comes to mind is being a perfect human being who never gets angry, never has, you know what I mean? So what kind of advice do you have for someone who may be looking towards walking, or they feel like they're coming towards a spiritual path or more spiritual path, but they feel like they have to be like this perfect human being?
Well, you don't have to be perfect. Mm-hmm. I think that's a misconception. I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. I still make stupid mistakes here and there and say things. I know Michelle, my significant other, will get mad at me occasionally because I'll say something that's rude. But I deserve to be, she doesn't yell at me or anything, but she'll straighten me out because I've said something that wasn't right. I'm not perfect. Mm-hmm. But I think it's the pursuit of being as good as you can be. That doesn't mean that you won't make mistakes, or that you won't make bad decisions or anything like that. You're trying to make the best choices in your life, but also to be compassionate. Compassionate for yourself, love yourself. I think that's a big, huge part of it, is to love yourself unconditionally, because if you can't love yourself, How are you going to help other people love themselves or find healing within themselves? Because you have to come from that space within yourself. So really, you're going to do some self-work.
Mhm.
And it's being as best as person as you can be, as compassionate as you can be, as kind as you can be. And then having that inner connection of self to spirit, and where you speak to your angels, your guides, the creator, your ancestors, because they're all there waiting to listen if you just have those conversations. And then when you have those conversations, I mean, there's not a time where I'm not, every day I'm talking to my guides, or because I feel like at the best of days I have dementia. And I can't remember this or that, and I'll be doing a Facebook Live, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I supposed to be saying here? And I just give up. I'm like, God, you're gonna have to put it in there because I don't have it. And then 2 minutes later, boom, it gets put in my head. I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. And then I just keep going.
I can relate.
But it's just having that communication with spirit too, and I mean, being mindful, being present,
Yeah.
and just being a light, and letting your light shine out. You know, it's not light to connect to light outside of yourself. You actually have to have the light within yourself, and it's really just being as good as you can be, as kind as you can be, as compassionate as you can be, loving as you can be, and just walking that way every day, and as present. Not too in your head, too far in the future, too far in the back. If you dwell on too much of things, then you're taking yourself out of the moments. Because in order to receive spirit connection and communication, there has to be a moment of presence.
Mm-hmm.
You have to create space in your mind for it to come in. So if you can't be mindful, in your head's a blah, 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 you're not creating space for your guide to tell you something. You're not creating space for spirit to tell you something because you're too busy in there. You're not really listening. Right. So you have to be mindful enough to be able to listen. And that takes work. It takes effort. It takes practice. And the more you're able to be more in the moment, intentionally too, especially with if you're with a client or somebody that you're helping, you definitely have to be mindful and be present. Because if you can't do that and you don't have the knowledge or wisdom to be in that space, then you're not going to be really open to receiving anything, because you have to create space to allow that information to come into your mind.
Exactly. Great advice.
Yeah.
So for those who are grieving, I mean, obviously grief is a path that you have to walk. There's no way around it. You have to go through it, right? But what about, for example, I'll just use this as an example. Like I had a client come in last year, and they expressed to me that they felt like if they were happy, even if like they had moments of happiness, that somehow that they were somehow being disrespectful to their loved one in spirit. You know, they miss them so much, but if they were happy at all, that it's like somehow they were disrespecting them. And I tried to, I mean, we can always say to people, they want you to be happy. You have to be happy. And of course we have to allow them to go through that grief process. But what do you say to someone who says, I cannot enjoy life because then it won't honor my loved one in spirit? What can you say to them to really drive the point home that their joy is actually their loved one's joy?
It is. I mean, I work with spirit, so with the messages that they give me, and the validations that come through to give to another person, it helps them know that their people are with them. And there is a conversation going on here, so that this is just not in my mind. And when spirit tells me things, they usually will tell me things that nobody should possibly know, that only they know, or them and the person know. And that really gets people's attention when you're doing this work. So they listen to you a little bit more closely when you're getting this. But the same information, the same knowledge, the same wisdom comes from every spirit over there, that nobody over there is looking down on their loved one going, I'm so grateful they're stuck. I'm so grateful that they're grieving. It's the reverse. It's the opposite. Every single one of those spirits want to see them living life to the fullest, because that's what we're here for. Yes. We're here to live life. We're going to return home one day. All of us. I mean, none of us are getting out of this world alive. Right. We are going to end up back home eventually. Mm-hmm. But honor your people. Honor them, because they want you to live. So if you love them, live your life. And that's the highest honor you can give any loved one that you have over there, is they see you living your life joyfully. And they'll make connections through your life to remind you they're still part of that process. Through the sign of the feather, the rainbow, the music that comes on, the message, the sudden memory that comes into your mind. There's little conversations coming all the time to all of us that are saying, hey, I'm with you. I'm with you. And sometimes they're further and farther between. Like my dad's been gone since 1987, but I don't need my dad around all the time. That doesn't mean I don't talk to him. It doesn't mean that I don't invite him to come and be with me. And I got a story. I was just in Hawaii in early February, and I love Hawaii. It's one of my favorite places in the world. And I was on the Big Island, and I went up to a volcano there. I don't remember the name of the volcano, but I wanted to see the sunset. It's beautiful up there. And we get up there, it's cold. I mean, even in Hawaii, it's cold on top of a mountain where there was snow up there because, with the altitude, it's just very high. And I was watching the sunset. So Michelle and her daughter were in the car. I'm outside, and what a better time for me to talk to my dad. And I'm inviting them. I'm like, Dad, my grandma, my grandfather, my great-grandparents, my guides, I want you all here. I want you all here with me right now so that we can enjoy this moment together. And I said, I just want you to know that I'm inviting you here to be here with me and just embrace wherever you are in the spirit world. I'm sure it's like incredibly beautiful over there, but come and embrace this moment with me just now. And I would really appreciate it. And I could kind of sense and feel them with me. And I just felt joy and I felt happiness, because that doesn't mean that because they're gone that you can't have an experience that they're with you and you can't feel love between you and them. You can. And I just felt them there. And then after the sunset, I think I shed a tear. I went into my car and we drove back. And the next day we went to our Airbnb, and we had a spot near the ocean and we had a veranda like 3 floors up overlooking the ocean. It was beautiful. And anyway, we're out there having our coffee, listening to the ocean and the sun's, coming up and such. And about 20 or 30 feet away, there's a little feather floating down. And it's just going like in slow motion. And I'm thinking, oh my God. I said, do you see that, Michelle? And she goes, yeah. And then the deck was here, right? And the railing of the deck. And again, it's 20 feet out. And it passed the deck. And something in my head say, hold out your hand. I put out my hand. The feather floated back up in the air and then came straight towards me and landed right in the palm of my hand.
Amazing.
And she's looking at me and her jaw's down. She's like, she's speechless. I'm like, how did that happen? I'm like, it's my people. I invited them here to be on this vacation with us. And I think it's their subtle way of like confirming that they're here with me. And I told her the story of being outside and just talking to them. And when I talk to spirit, I always talk out loud.
Do you?
I think that's the greatest way. Talk to them out loud like you're talking to a person, because you really are.
Yeah.
Everybody talks at this conversation going on in their head. When spirit talks to you, they will communicate to you in here. Sometimes I actually physically hear them. I actually even have all kinds of recordings of people talking to me, which is not normal. It's pretty normal for me. But when you talk to them, what I would tell people, speak out loud. Use your words. Talk to them like they're actually there listening. And what I tell everybody is, I would tell a story like that to a client or somebody, of helping them see what is possible if you invite them in your life. Still, talk to them. Invite them to be part of something special. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily invite my dad with me every moment of the day, but that moment was a special moment that I wanted him to be part of. Right. And it was their way of validating that they heard me and they were there with me. And if that can happen for me, that can happen for anyone. We're all just equally connected. I'm not special, more special than anyone else. We all come from the same source, and we're going to all return to the same source. And I think once we have that idea and realization, and if you can help people see that, in your own stories, in your own ways, and the signs that show up, it'll help them feel closer to their people. And again, the message is always live your life. Live it to their fullest, because that's what brings them joy.
Right.
That's what brings them love. is knowing that you are loving them and honoring them by living your life to the fullest capacity that you're able to. And then when you go home and you speak with them, probably one of the first things they're going to say is, I'm so happy, I'm so joyful that you lived your life. You know, you are still connected to me all this time. You know, that's the messages that they'll have. Right. And it's knowing that. And it's sometimes those little drips that happen that you don't expect, or you're hoping that they're there listening, and then something happens to say, oh my God, they can hear me. And it shifts your whole life. And if you notice, what I also tell people, if I notice they're stuck in a thought that is negative, right? Mm-hmm. You have an opportunity to shift your thoughts, to change it to something to joyful, to happy. I mean, my dad, you know, no offense, Dad, because I know he can hear me. I mean, growing up, he was a tough character. He was a military guy, spanked my bum a few times. I remember running down the hall as he kicked my ass because I was in trouble. You know, there's some moments there that I could say that, you know, I was scared of my dad. But if I always think of the negative when I think of my dad, that's the experience I will have. But if you notice that you have negative moments, whatever that is, with the person that you love, mm-hmm. you can shift it to something. I remember times the first trout that I ever caught fishing with my dad out in Dollar Lake in Nova Scotia. And, you know, I remember it splashing off in the distance. And he says, throw your hook over there. And I threw it over there and I caught it. And my dad was so proud of me because he's never caught as big as trout ever. But that's a moment that I remember with my dad. And I was probably only 12 years old. And I'll hold that always. And I think of my dad or any person that I love, my grandma who loved horror movies. She was a very strong Mi'kmaq woman who was scared of nothing, very connected to spirit. But, you know, we sit down and play cards. Unfortunately, she had dementia, and we'd play cards. But I, even though she couldn't remember what she was doing sometimes, she knew how to cheat. That's what she knew how to cheat playing cards. But when I think of my grandmom, I think of those times sitting down and the conversations we would have. It was just those happy moments. You have an opportunity to feel your loved ones with you now. And it's through those memories, through your thoughts, that you shift from the negative to a positive, that you can now have that experience right now with your people you love. And they know. Everyone over there knows that you're having it. They know that you're experiencing it. They know that you're thinking about them. And they know what you're thinking about in that regard, in the memory that you have.
Yeah.
So what a great way to stay connected and to have them come to you at a time when it's joyful rather than sorrow.
Exactly.
But grief is a part of life, and it's the gift. Grief is a gift. It's a gift of love.
It is.
Because you love that you have from the people you are in the spirit world. This is the gift they've given you, is that continued love. And you're going to learn to grow with time, that you won't have them physically with you.
Right.
In that sense of the solid form, and wishing that, hey, I wish my dad had saw my kids being born or my grandkids being born, etc. But you know what? They are.
Yeah.
And we have a moment to shift our moments to happiness, to joy, and to say, you know, Dad, be here with me. Be with me here today. You know, your granddaughter is born. Be here in this moment and share it with me. I know that you're here. Just share this moment with me. And then there's little things that will happen to validate that they're there. The lights flicker or whatever. It's little
as long as you're open to it. Some people, they kind of, you know, they don't wish it away. They dismiss it, you know, they dismiss it.
It's because they think it's just a coincidence. There's no such thing as coincidence.
Right. Yeah.
Coincidence just literally means coincide. That means things that are meant to go together. Mm-hmm. And so release these things that are like coincidence. There's no coincidences in life. It's all synchronicity. It's all synchronicity of everything. My dad dying is a synchronicity. He was meant to happen. I wouldn't be who I am today. It's exactly what he said. The greatest gift of love I could give you was to leave this world so that you become the person that you are, that I could show you the light. I could show you where our home is. And I didn't have to die to see it. Mm-hmm. But there's people out there that have had near-death experiences or other experiences that have shifted their lives. And it required something like that to help them see the world differently.
Exactly.
But there's some event that is probably going to take place in our lifetime, especially, you know, if you're a spiritual person, a good person, kind person, a person of light. something's going to happen tragically somehow to shift your life. Because if nothing bad happens, you're going to continue that path in the same way you always have. And these things are meant to happen. It's intentional. Because, I mean, we're all here for, it may seem like a long time. It's not. It really isn't, man. I was 28 the other day, and I had like an 8-pack, and I could run like an 8-minute mile. Now I have like a keg, and I can walk a mile, maybe in 80 minutes, who knows? But, you know, we change, and we're always in the process of becoming something new. Your physical form, your spirit, your experiences, and it's a gift, even without the people that you love physically, to be part of this experience, to live life to the fullest, to engage in life, and to be a creator in some way, to create, to be of service. And if you can like face life like that, then I think you've probably, you know, death will take care of itself. Don't worry about dying. Don't worry about the people who are dead. Connect, communicate to them, have a relationship with them, and you're going to return home one day too. And we're going to look back at your life and go, no matter what I went through, I embraced it. I was engaged. I lived it. And I fully just gave it my all. And I'm so proud of myself, because no matter what happened to me, I found a way to overcome it.
Beautiful. It's a great place to start to end this interview, because that's a beautiful way, especially right now, because people are so uncertain with how things are going. And live your life to its fullest, no matter whatever circumstances are given to you, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's things, the whole thing is not an accident that it's shown up in the world.
Exactly.
It's not some weird thing that has just happened by accident. You know, we need to shift our lives. We need to shift maybe how we see our relationships, right? Yeah. To honor those relationships differently, or honor the world that we live in. Exactly. I mean, I think, you know, scientists have been looking at the world and seeing that the emissions have changed in the planet, and that people are getting out in nature. Why haven't we been getting out in nature, or the woods, or the forests, or, you know, away from like, you know, the busyness of the world as much? And now we have to stay apart, but we spend time alone. Maybe we need to learn how to love ourselves.
Right.
Greater, so that we can be different in the world. And I think this is a gift, and I'm grateful for this experience. I'm grateful for every soul that has gone home to help us learn this, because I don't even think their leaving this world is an accident. You know, when they were over in the spirit world going, what can we do to shift the consciousness of the world? Who's willing to sign up for that? I bet you a whole bunch of people put up their hand and say, I will do this. I will do this for the greater good of all humanity, that we can hopefully change the consciousness of the planet, because we've somehow gone down the wrong path some way. And we need to look at our life differently now. And I think that all, you know, spirit, our ancestors, people over there, the people that have lost their lives, they're all telling us something. And I feel sorrow for those people who have lost people. And, you know, through all this, there's going to be a need for people who are helping people heal. And Absolutely. The fact that you've been called to be in service, whoever and whatever you do in whatever form, embrace that, because that's not an accident. And I feel like the Creator has entrusted people like us, other people in service, to help people heal. And we feel this desire to move in that way. And I know anybody that's watching this has probably got that inner calling, that inner voice, that light within themselves, that is also, even though there might be a little fear, you know, move through that, move into a place of love and presence, and embrace it and be in service in some way.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
A wonderful message.
I told you before, if you get me talking, you're not going to get me stopped.
No, you warned me. No, it's been wonderful to hear you speak, and to, it's well, I think it's really needed right now. It really is.
Well, thank you for having me on, Lauren. Thank you. Please tell John I say hi.
Absolutely.
I love that man. He's a great man, got a great heart, great person, spirit out there serving others in his own ways. So absolutely. I'm grateful that spirit sent him to me. However, he showed up in my life. I mean, that's how spirit works.
Yeah,
right people, the right time, the right circumstances. Even this conversation, it's all part of the plan.
I agree. It's all part of the divine plan. So how can people get in touch with you?
Well, I have a website. It's shawn-leonard.com, SHAWN hyphen or dash Leonard, LEONARD.com. Unfortunately, I no longer do any personal readings, just so you know. I just do group readings. I do the TV show Spirit Talker, which is on APTN. Hoping that it might be released in Netflix US, but we'll see. I know it's out to a distributor and they're shopping it around and they're looking for shows because there's not a lot of shows that are finished out there ready to go. And this one is, so I'm hoping that it does show up there. If you work at Netflix and watching this, please make it happen.
Right. I'm telling you, if it does make it to Netflix in the States, it's going to be a huge hit. I promise. It's so needed right now. And and what I've seen of it that you've done in the webisodes that you've done and posted on YouTube, it's so well done. It's done so respectfully to spirit.
It is.
So,
I mean, and then I had some input in the creative process to it all, but the only thing I wish there was more time, because they only show little pieces of snippets of readings that are there's so much more. Because I mean, there's so much to a session when it comes to working with a spirit talker and a medium. It's hard to sum it down for a few little validations. Exactly. When there's so many validations that come through the whole process that help people in so many profound ways. And again, I know that you must feel this. What an honor and great respect to be part of that process. I just love it. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for you, for being of service, for helping people and coming from your heart to do it. I'm grateful for every other person out there that is thinking about moving into a healing field of some form, whether it's this or something else. Thank you. And follow that light, follow that message inside your heart. It's telling you something. Listen to it.
Exactly. Very good. Thank you, Shawn. It's been an honor to chat with you. And I hope we meet in person someday.
We will.
We will. I promise we will. Right. Great. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you next time. Bye.
Yeah. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.